All right. Thanks, Chad. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for being here today. We are ahead of the game, and my name is Chris Hicks. I'm currently active duty Air Force stationed at Scott Air Force Base, Illinois.
I'm Scott Rometta, current resident of Pittsburgh, PA, and U.S. Navy veteran.
I'm Latasha Wise, located in New Orleans, Louisiana, and I'm a U.S. Army veteran.
I'm Stephen Howard, Air Force veteran in Columbus, Ohio.
I'm Dan Miller, a U.S. Marine Corps veteran working out of Richlands, North Carolina. And today, I have the pleasure of introducing you to our full stack web application, Ahead of the Game. Have you ever missed an amazing game or performance by one of your favorite teams or athletes? Or maybe you plan to watch the game on delay, only to have it spoiled by one of those overbearing alerts by one of the big sports networks. What if you could manage notifications for all your favorite teams and players in one user-friendly web app? Look no further, because regardless of the situation, our app will make sure that you stay ahead of the game. Ahead of the Game is an all-in-one sports event notification management application. Ahead of the Game allows users to take control of their sports notifications by storing them in a centralized location. Once games are added to the calendar, users can enable text notifications for each event. Users also have the option of joining a chat room that is open to users who have added that same event. This means that users can interact with fellow sports fans and live every moment as if they're at their favorite bar or stadium. Now for a live demo of Ahead of the Game, I'm going to pass it off to Chris.
Thanks, Dan. Let's get started. So first, we have this pretty sweet landing page here. Now we're going to go explore Ahead of the Game, see what we can do. This is our dashboard. Right now it's populated with St. Louis Cardinals games. So I'm an avid sports fan. I love to watch all my favorite teams, but I absolutely hate when I miss a game that I really wanted to watch. Ahead of the Game offers this calendar component that syncs with your own Google Calendar. And right now we are going to go see how we can add more events to it. We'll go to the search page. You can choose by sport here. We're going to go click on Texas Rangers, maybe the Dallas Cowboys, and the Nashville Predators. Then we'll just go up here, add those events to our calendar, and we're navigated to this events page. Each one of these cards here has the teams playing, the sport it is, the location, date, time, and then later we'll talk about the chat functionality and how to remove events. Right now we'll go look at these on our calendar view, which is our dashboard. So all those games are populated here. There is a game on August 5th, the Cardinals versus the Yankees, that I know I won't be able to watch. So we're going to go back to the events page and see how to remove that from our calendar. Going to find that game on August 5th. Cardinals, Yankees. Looks like that's it right there. And just click Remove Event. And now that will reflect on our calendar right there. It's gone. And we'll look at that in a weekly view, a little easier to follow along. Cool. However, I know there is a game where the Cardinals play the Yankees again on that Saturday that I definitely don't want to miss. So we're going to go back to the events page and check out that chat functionality. Find that game, click Go Chat. And we're navigated to that chat. Looks like we're the first ones here. Ask a question. Maybe if anyone knows if Adam Wainwright will be pitching. Hopefully someone responds. Yes, someone did respond. Looks like it's Ken Griffey Jr. That's pretty random, but thanks for responding anyways. I'm definitely going to be keeping an eye out for him. slow typer, sorry. Now, after this, we can go to the account page and see how we can schedule those text notifications. All you have to do here is click that check mark, save changes, and we should get a text. Yep, right there. You're now subscribed to Ahead of the Game text alerts. Awesome. Thank you for following along, everyone. Now we're going to hear from Scott with the technologies we used.
Thanks for the great demo, Chris. We used a lot of different technologies to get everything working the way we wanted. For project management, we use Mural for our Moscow board to list our must-haves, should-haves, could-haves, and won't-haves. And we use Trello for our user stories and to keep track of tasks. For version control, we use Git and GitHub. For our backend, we use Django REST framework. And for our database, we use PostgreSQL. For our front end, we used React coupled with CSS for styling. Some of the APIs we used were Auth0 for authentication. We used the Google Calendar API to interact with event subscriptions and display them on the embedded calendar in the dashboard. We scraped sports data from the NHL and MLB APIs to use for our events. For the event chat room, we use the Firebase Chat API, and for text notifications, we use the Twilio API. We hosted the front end and back end of Ahead of the Game on Heroku. I will now hand it off to Stephen to talk about some of the challenges we faced while creating Ahead of the Game.
Thanks, Scott. The first challenge we faced was clearly articulating user stories. It wasn't that we didn't have a great vision for the application, it was that we didn't know what our technical limitations would be. We spent a lot of time researching where we would get the data for the team's schedules. Originally, we wanted to select events based on individual players. This added a layer of complexity that didn't fit the scope of this release. Additionally, we weren't sure how much control Google Calendar would allow us, how permissions would work, who would be the owner of the calendar, us or the end user. But once we had a foundational understanding of the tools we had access to, formulating what needed to be done became much clearer. This research process proved to validate the need of our app, as there wasn't a sporting events API that centralized all of this data. Instead, we needed to aggregate several data sources ourselves. The next challenge we faced revolved around developing a process for continuous integration and continuous deployment. Our goal was to have our app hosted on Heroku and automatically updated as merges to the main branch were made. With the help of Dave Tetro from the TR app team, we were able to set this up quickly with GitHub Actions. The trouble came when database migrations were merged out of order and when we could get dependencies to work locally, but not when pushed to Heroku. For me personally, I learned the most from this challenge. This helped me develop a critical eye for code reviews. On a more comical note, we had a few personal challenges that weren't so funny at the time. Rolling power outages, sunburns from forgetting how to exist outside, and toddlers. Now, Latasha is going to discuss what additional features we would add with more time.
Thanks, Stephen. Future goals we have for Ahead of the Game are adding a Google Calendar listener, which will give the user the ability to delete an event on the Google Calendar, and it also replicates to the backend. The ability to follow individual players in more sports, live stream the game, stats provide a graphical display of the current game at the time, delete more than one event at a time, add links to betting odds and maybe to the team's websites, give the user a little more personal feel to the website so they'll be able to customize their text notifications based on their preferences, and maybe add the ability to add other calendars, for example, Apple Calendar. Thank you guys for attending our presentation. We're now going to open the floor for questions.
All right, thanks very much. Ahead of the Game. Looks like we got one question in the chat. So what would you do different to avoid merge conflicts?
Stephen, did you want to take that one?
Sure. For me, what I learned to pay most attention to was if the database was touched at all, to make sure that that merge or that migration was in the correct order with the way tables worked. One easy way to test this without detail reviewing it would be to just pull that branch down, run it locally, run the migration locally. Dependencies are a little tougher. I think really the solve there is kind of similar. Just be disciplined to pull down the person's branch, run it locally, and make sure it works.
Yeah, and I think to add a little more to that too, I think it would help if when we were creating those branches, we probably could have benefited from having smaller changes at a time, because sometimes we would change more than we meant to and pushed it up, and then that's where those merge conflicts occurred.
All right, cool. Yeah, focus PRs. That's important. Would you guys mind talking a little bit about, you said you had, you couldn't really find one API that met your needs. So how did you guys manage, pulling from multiple APIs and getting all that data together to form as usable for your application?
Yeah, so it was really a manual process. Like Chris and I had to go in and we pretty much scrape as much data as we could, and we actually built out the APIs using REST framework. Chris can talk on a specific tool he used, but basically we just used scraping techniques and what data was available to then put into our own API. So when we were building out our pages, we had one consistent source of data, and it just made it easier to deal with it when we made those calls. So I know, Chris, did you want to comment on that library that you used?
Yeah, we created that API with kind of a mix of the MLB and NHL APIs, but then there was also this Python library called Sportsify, and it's got some pretty comprehensive data on there. There's a website called Sports Reference, and that's pretty much what they use to host all, or to get all their stats. And they have like all the main sports, but we were we were able to leverage that to build out our API.